Hello and welcome back to Unit 3, the role of a data scientist. In section 3.1, we'll be looking at business acumen, moving on to visualization, and the third section will focus on technical knowledge. And this is quite a large section as well because we'll be covering machine learning, basics in Python, and we'll also be looking at other areas within the technical domain that a data scientist needs to be well versed with. We'll then go on to data storytelling in building narrative, and finally close with the fifth section, the final section of this unit, driving business value. So let's begin. What is business acumen? Do I need it? Is it important? How do I develop it? How do I use it? These are the various questions we'll be tackling in this section. So let's see what the definition of business acumen is again, and we'll look at it much more in depth than we have done previously. Business acumen or business sense or business understanding is the ability to understand and apply business principles and make more informed decisions that are based on empirical information and data, and using this to drive success for the organization or the business or the company. And this is not just the responsibility of the leadership or the commercial teams, but it's something that should be acquired and possessed by all of the staff in a company, because they can really start to understand how the work that they do benefits the business and the customers in general. More specifically for data scientists, this involves not just technical proficiency, but also the ability to connect the insights that they're extracting from the data to business outcomes and strategies and products and services. So what does this really mean? It means that as data scientists, we need to understand how the entire spectrum of the business is run, from its admin, payroll, HR functions, to its business operations functions, to its marketing functions, to its sales functions, and then of course the more domain-oriented functions, including supply chain or procurement that is supporting manufacturing or development of some product or service, etc., etc. And if data scientists understand this to some degree, not to the nth degree, then they can really make informed decisions and support and contribute to the collective success of the company or the business or the organization that they're part of. Because when they're working with data, they can start to see patterns from a domain perspective as well as purely a data-oriented exercise. This is why it's very important to integrate with business stakeholders while working on a data solution, and have interaction with them every week or on a regular basis, asking questions about the domain, asking questions about the data, the observations that are being made during exploratory data analysis, for instance. So business awareness or business acumen is an awareness of business nuances, decisions, processes, outcomes, campaigns, and this can be at different levels of depth for different roles at the organization. More concretely, and to encapsulate it, it's a set of soft and hard skills and capabilities that are needed by data scientists to influence others, to achieve strategic goals, and to impact their organization positively. Is it important though? Do we really need it as data scientists? Well, a high percentage of business leaders, and it depends on which reports you look at, report that a lack of business acumen in staff negatively impacts strategic goals. Therefore, leaders would really like for each staff member to have some degree of business acumen and understanding, because it can drive value for the business and in turn impact the economic value that is being derived by the business as well. This could be in the form of profitability or revenue, as I've said previously, or could even be competitive advantage, it could be cost efficiencies, and so on and so forth. Businesses or organizations that have staff who actually possess a high degree of business acumen are more likely to lead in profitability and market share. Not only that, but even for you as a data scientist, it's essential to have business acumen for your career growth. It provides you visibility to the leadership because you've achieved something with your data solution that's impacted the organization, maybe improved a process or led to some percentage gain in profitability or cost cutting, etc. And so you should really work on developing it. And you can do that by assessing and understanding yourself and the business and organizational structure. And we'll look at this in depth in later slides. Common barriers to developing business acumen include things like, I would say, as a data scientist, I'm in a technical role. I'm not really interested in the business. I like the technical aspects of making solutions, looking at the data. I'm fully focused on my individual role and its targets, and I'm not really curious about how businesses are run. So this can be a very typical perspective of a technical role, and we need to overcome this to some degree to understand how and looking at the business from a different angle will allow you to do your job better. If you're in a role already, perhaps your first job or in your early career, or even if you're in your developed and mature career in a different discipline, ask yourself these questions. Do you know how your business or company positions itself in the market? How does it differentiate itself compared to its competitors? Who are its competitors? What are their offerings? What is your company's product or service offering to the customer? Do you know if the company that you work for could improve their products or services or gain new customers or market segments and they're unable to because of X, Y, and Z reasons? Have you communicated this to relevant colleagues? Do you know what silos exist in your company? How they are hindering success for the collective? Perhaps departments aren't working together, they're not sharing data or sharing reports or information unless it's really mandatory for them to do so by whatever process is regulating. Do you know how the current affairs or global affairs or climate change in the world are impacting your company that you work for? And how is it going to impact the organization in the foreseeable future? Do you think that the company that you work for should pivot? And these ideas that you have for pivoting should be grounded in evidence and facts. So perhaps they're offering a product that they shouldn't be anymore because the market is shifting and they need to pivot and use their existing infrastructure and existing offerings and products to shape them and to move in a different direction. A very good example here is, of course, Amazon, which started as a bookseller online and then kept on pivoting to the extent that they were one of the first hyperscalers offering AWS, Amazon Web Services. Almost more than 10 years ago now, they started perhaps as the first one amongst their competitors. So businesses who keep pivoting in line with the market dynamics and how the market shifts over the years tend to stay alive and do well. Do you think that the business that you work for should adapt, change, or update their offering? Is there an opportunity to move into new segments or regions? What ideas do you have? What do you do in your business as usual on a daily basis differently? Perhaps you've written a macro to automate some of the things that you do, or you've improved some formula that's being used in a process. It could be anything that could bring a positive impact if the company adopted it company-wide and in all parts of the different business functions. So once you've asked yourself these questions, you can really start to see that the work that you do on a daily basis might have a real and direct impact, if not indirect, because it always has indirect impact anyway. And then you can start to shape that narrative, and we will see this in other sections of the unit as well. So what does business acumen comprise? It has financial knowledge, so you really need to understand how the finances of a company work, pricing, asset management, budget forecasting, cost controls in various metrics and financial reports that are being circulated, and how the business is tracking success and measuring success in terms of different criteria, and especially, of course, revenue or profit. And as data scientists, we don't need to understand this to the degree that, let's say, a finance professional or an accountant would understand those, but just enough for us to be able to connect it to the work that we do and for us to be able to connect the solution to the business value and the business problem that we're trying to solve. Second thing being knowledge of the organization and business. How are things run? What processes and workflows are being used? How do those impact efficiency and so on? Stakeholder needs. You should know who the stakeholders are, what their interests and needs are, and how are decisions made within the organization, and how do those decisions impact the stakeholder needs. Next, we have role contextualization. And this is very much particular and specific to us as individuals. We need to understand how our decisions are impacting the business, how our work is impacting the business. Then you need to be able to spot patterns, look at causes and effects, and this could be in the data that you're working with, or it could be outside of your work environment, perhaps having a conversation with a colleague from a different function, or uh, reading the news, or reading an article in your industry, in the AI industry, in data science industry, specific to some domain. So let's say perhaps you read an article that's talking about electric vehicles or driverless cars, etc., and that's given you an idea which might have some relevance for your business. Next, we have communication. So communicating these ideas, the patterns that you're mapping and or spotting, and with your knowledge of the organization and the business, the stakeholder needs, and your own role, you can communicate all of this horizontally across the organization and even vertically to the leadership. You should have analytical skills, and these are also part of the business acumen, because off the back of financial operations, market data, and empirical insights, alongside metrics and KPIs, you can really start to build these narratives and narrow down the ideas into stories, substantiate those with data, insights, and evidence, and present those to the right stakeholders, colleagues, and leadership. And we know leadership is you being able to motivate your colleagues and your team. Uh, Trust is something that leaders need to develop so that their colleagues are able to follow them. Dedication, the right type of delegation, and so on and so forth. Strategic planning and thinking involves flexibility, planning, actionability, aligning with business goals. Market orientation, and competitive intelligence means understanding customer needs and other competitor companies in the market that are in your space. How are your customers purchasing your products and services? What's your customer understanding in general? And finally, marketing skills, targeting your products and services to the right audiences at the right time in the right place, developing comprehensive and accurate and impactful marketing strategies, working with multiple channels, websites, social media, telephone, email, etc., etc. Brand management, that uniformity that you need in your brand for people to be able to recognize it, and so on and so forth. So I hope by now you are convinced that this is an important area for you to give some time to as a data scientist. And the reason why I've kept it as the first section in this unit as well is because this should form the foundation on which you do your work as a data scientist. So how do you develop and highlight business acumen? Well, it's something that is done on an ongoing basis. And you need to practice it daily so that you can get better at it. It's a continuous process. You should understand and study your business model for your company and how growth strategies are deployed and formulated, what's the org structure, what's the vision and policies. You should look at the impact of your role and how your actions affect the company and demonstrate this self-awareness. You should be aware of financial details, what metrics are being used, look at financial statements, ask questions if you don't understand something which is related to maybe work that you're doing in analyzing financial data. You should keep abreast of industry trends, so read news and articles whenever you can. You should conduct a competitive analysis and track industry trends so that you really understand the broader context in the industry with regards to who is active in this industry, the market leaders, the companies that your company is competing with, etc. Of course, you have to understand the customers. If not, um, if you can, you should talk to your customers, analyze their feedback, or at least read some meeting minutes or relevant documentation. Marketing, you need to liaise and understand with the marketing team and how they operate and execute campaigns, because quite often you'll find your data insights and the outcomes from your work feeding these campaigns. You should understand what target audience is, what channels are being used by the marketing team. To develop your analytical acumen, work with the data, extract insights, interpret it, extract information that's valuable, disseminate this. This is very typical to what we do as data scientists. Be up to date with literature, so either enroll in classes or courses or read relevant books, articles, and papers that are published in scientific journals. Calculated risks, you should really practice this because risk taking is something that a leader needs to do, and a data scientist must be a leader because data science and AI are driving change, and more often than not, the work that you do will need to drive that change across the organization. So you need to be able to take those risks and perform as a leader. Learn from failure, embrace your failures, keep going, fail fast, and improve. Find mentors with strong business acumen. You can go to leaders in the business and ask to have meetings with them or engage with them socially, or you can ask for a shadowing opportunity, so you can shadow a senior leader in a different department. This is quite a common process that's offered to new joiners in companies. You should include your relevant skills and examples from your career in business acumen, so you can demonstrate this on your CV and in the interviews. So find out, maybe take each of the business acumen areas that we've highlighted. Think of an example from your career or your student days when you've done projects together in collaboration with other fellow students, and create this set of examples that are very clear. Use the STAR method there, so always explain the situation briefly. What task was at hand, what actions did you take, and what was the result? Keep it succinct, clear, to the point. And finally, demonstrate this value. Show how the business acumen that you've developed contributes to organization goals, and you're on your way. So what are the expectations of a business, a company, or an organization from a data scientist? You probably already have experienced this, but when you take on a data problem and start solving that business problem with a data solution, more often than not, the leaders in the business or the stakeholders or the sponsors will have their own perspective on the proof of concept prototype or the minimum viable product that's being developed. And it might look like this list of items that we've got here. They might think that the data scientist must identify stakeholders, engage with key stakeholders. They might help you identify and give you a list of these stakeholders, but they'll expect you to engage with them and to understand their needs and objectives. This is probably more often than not where you will start. They'll expect you to set clear goals, because you need to be able to define and agree on these goals for data analysis and align with the business objectives. Sometimes, or quite often, you will find that the business won't set these goals clearly. So you have to really interview and start to interact and engage them in conversation to be able to create these goals for yourself and agree on these goals as well. It could be, let's say, the performance criteria, the different types of thresholds that you might want to put on performance metrics. What sort of recall do they expect? What is recall? Explain to them what recall is, understand their perspective, agree on something that you think is plausible. Similarly, precision, or maybe F1 score, etc., etc. It might be that you are unable to set a particular threshold or performance acceptance criteria, and in this case you might have to go into an exploratory analysis, because there is no precedence, they don't have an existing solution, so you have nothing to compare against, and you want to be able to look at the data first. So the goal might be that you have a week or 2 weeks or whatever duration of exploration, and then you, at the end of this phase, you agree with the business stakeholders on those specific goals. But the basic premise is that we need to engage them, discuss with them, set goals together. The business will also expect, quite often, the data scientist to understand the industry, the domain, and the trends. So you can really start to do this in the interviews, ask the right questions, read some reports, ask them to suggest to you some latest state of the art and state of the practice article or report that might help you to understand the industry, do some market research. They will also expect data scientists to evaluate impact and assess how the solutions that are developed contribute to business goals, and this needs to be demonstrated as part of the business case as well. And more often than not, you'll have to develop the business case as well as data scientists. They'll expect you to measure success as well as a data scientist. So whatever metrics that we've agreed upon, bring empirical results from the model, evaluate the success of the solution. And finally, they'll also expect us to validate the solution with the business, ensure that it meets their needs in an iterative, agile manner, and then deploy these and hand it over to the business over a period of time so that they can take ownership. So in summary, business acumen is understanding business goals, industry trends, effective communication. It's crucial for us as data scientists. It helps us align our work with the objectives of the business, the goals that the company has. It helps us to keep up to date with trends, present our findings effectively, communicate it horizontally and vertically, influence leadership and the sponsors, and convince them and generate this consensus across the business, which allows the change to pervade. In conclusion, as a data scientist with a strong technical skill and mature business acumen, you can really bring change to your organization and drive business value through AI adoption. You can become an asset for the company. You can advance in your career as a leader, and you'll have very high levels of job satisfaction because whatever work that you do will actually be used by the business, and it will bring that change that will be quite visible to you, and the recognition of your success as well that will be measurable and visible for you in the company. So once you're integrated in the company and understand the business to a sufficient degree, you can really start to link patterns you see in the data and communicate it at the right time to the right audience in the right place, develop your ideas, link causes to effects and problems to solutions. And when you put all this together in the right visuals and story, you're all set to influence the right stakeholders, socialize it across the business, and drive AI adoption. And this is the very playground of a data scientist. And it's incredibly exciting and interesting. So we'll meet again in the second section of this unit. Thanks for joining me.